A Haunting in a Small Texas Town, Part 1. Introduction. My story begins in my hometown, the small country town in Texas where I was born and raised. Due to the privacy and anonymity of the beautiful residents still living there, I am going to call this town Blythe. Our home is no longer there. We had it torn down a while ago. The lot it originally stood on looks mournfully different, as if it is grieving the loss of the house and departure of our family. The 2 trees that we planted before we ultimately moved our mother from the home are still standing and have grown from small saplings to robust trees. Their long limbs with whole, healthy leaves seem to flutter and move gracefully and gingerly upon our arrival. My sister, brother-in-law, and I drove down to Blythe one weekend in summer, and the trees welcomed us home with limbs that stretched out as if begging for a hug, as their healthy, green leaves waved in the wind, which filled my heart with joy. As the wind blew, it sounded as though the leaves were quietly speaking a language all their own. As we walked through the yard, the energy beneath our feet brought back oceans of memories from my childhood and the sweet seasons spent there in that house. I know it sounds wild because the house had a life of its own, but it is true. I still dream of this house where every room holds a memory that I cannot magically wish nor wash away. Memories of a lifetime continue to tug at my heart to this very day. They are in my dreams, in the music that I hear from yesteryear, some good and cheerful memories, and a few that are not so good. I will say this, if those trees could talk, what a story they would have to tell. Blythe, our fantastic town, has a surprisingly large population due to the surrounding suburbs. One thing about it, that little town had and still has pizzazz. The Blythe County Chamber of Commerce, Agriculture, and Tourist Bureau made sure that there were parades, rodeos, Christmas pageants, Fiesta de la Paloma events, 4th of July celebrations, and the regular small-town get-togethers, barbecues, and bake sales. When anyone thinks about any country town, they always think about dirt roads, thorns, bushes, weeds, horned toads, rattlesnakes, and so on. Yes, Blythe had its fair share of dirt streets and rocks that sometimes served as an item used to defend yourself against a dog that was in the mood to chase you as you walked or rode your bike down the street. There were a few paved streets, and even a road made of bricks. That was my favorite road in the entire town. When the wind picked up, the tumbleweed would blow down the streets, and into the yards were a sight to see for us country folks. Of course, growing up in the country, there are always going to be superstitious beliefs, followed by stories for everything, and tumbleweeds were no exception. The older generation would say that if tumbleweed blows through your yard, someone who lived there was going to die. My siblings and I believed that story. Now, when we think about it, it is funny as hell, and we cannot believe that we allowed something so silly and country to scare us. As with any small town, you will have neighbors that love to stick their noses in other people's business and watch to see who visited their neighbors and how long they stayed. After all, they would need something to talk about whenever they called their other friends on our never-ending party lines back then. Whenever one of our neighbors named Mrs. Higgins saw a vehicle parked at someone's house nearby, she would make it a point to try and find out who it was and what they looked like. Even if it meant taking a pot of water across the street and pouring it out in the bushes just to get a good look and try her hardest to see who was visiting the other neighbors. That would give them something to talk about and tie up the party line, so if someone else needed to use the phone, they would have to ask Mrs. Higgins and her friends if they would hang up and allow them to place a phone call. If you are guessing that sometimes the sweet little old women would remain silently on the phone to listen to your conversations, no, they would not. They would hang up and, in a few minutes, quietly pick up their receiver and listen in on your phone call. When it became clear that Mrs. Higgins and her friends had picked the receiver up and were listening, the person they were listening to would have to ask them to hang up in a stern voice, so they would know they were busted. I imagine that was their way of having some excitement in their life since neither of them drove anymore and only left their house to go grocery shopping or to church. I can honestly say that I felt safe there and my friends and I could walk all over town, and that is precisely what we did. We not only walked, but we rode our bicycles all over town as well. We stayed out a little later in the summertime, catching fireflies, sitting under the streetlights telling ghost stories, or just talking about what we wanted to do when we graduated from school and college, current events, sports, music, or nothing at all. Just stargazing. Now, Blythe was filled with mom and pop stores that had been in business for years, passed down from one generation to the next generation, so as far as any more extensive cooperations that wanted to move into town having the opportunity to do so. It was not happening because of the fear that it would put the small hometown stores out of business. Our family consisted of our mother, Gina, who was this curvy 5'7" woman with a tiny waist, big hips and legs, well-proportioned, dark raven-haired woman with a beautiful face and personality to match. Our mother worked hard, cleaning houses and working at a home for troubled girls, but still took time out to spend with us and making sure we had the things we needed. Our stepfather, Edward, was a 5'6" small frame, bow-legged man who walked with his shoulders up as if in a position someone would take if asked a question, and they hunched their shoulders up and said, "I do not know." He worked for a construction company building roads and bridges, which entailed traveling to other towns and cities to work when the company secured a contract that required traveling. He was the father of our youngest brother, Ivan, and our baby sister, Haven. The remaining members of our family consisted of sisters, Emma, Eden, Evie, a brother named Braxton, another sister named Gina, named after our mother, then came Jaira, me, and my name is Jarlin. I am the seventh child, then came our baby brother who passed away in 1969 named Ivan, and lastly our baby sister named Haven. We were a typical family, with parents who worked hard like the others in our town to make ends meet and take care of their families. We attended church every Sunday and did not question it, so when it was time to get up and go to church, my siblings and I would get up, dress, and head down the rocky dirt road to the old white church. We were always anxious to get back home to the delicious Sunday meal our mom had cooking in the slow cooker and oven while we were at church, although we knew that the pastor and his wife would be joining us as well. The congregation would always make sure both the pastor and First Lady were always welcome for a hot meal. Chapter 1. A Dark Visitor. Back in the 60s and 70s, paranormal discussions were not as common as they are today, and even so, my mom would not have spoken of it in the presence of her children. When adults engaged in conversations back then, it was proper for them to send the children to another room or outdoors to play with the weather permitting. These days, the paranormal shows, investigators, and researchers who now work to prove to skeptics that this phenomenon does exist. Maybe not in the form of our deceased loved ones returning from the dead in the form of a ghost to haunt them or assist them find something such as a title or blueprints to a house or mislaid money, etc. It helps individuals understand the concept of what is going on in their lives and realize that they are not losing their minds. It was the spring of 1970, and I was 6 years old when I experienced my first paranormal incident. I had no idea what I had experienced. I just knew I never expected anything like that to happen. It was a bright, sunny morning, and my mother and I were in the kitchen. She was combing my hair, preparing me for school. The smell of the morning glory flowers and the aroma of the fresh spearmint from the massive patch of mint growing in the flower bed beneath the kitchen window filled the air, accompanied by the cheerful chirping of birds. The front door was open, but Mother had locked the old wooden screen with the hook latch, and she and I were the only ones home. As Mother brushed my hair, she hummed an old gospel hymn. Mother had me hold my head down slightly so she could ensure that she had brushed the back thoroughly. I remember beginning to feel cold and happening to notice something moving in the living room. My head tilted down. I could still see movement in the living room. I raised my head just enough to glimpse a jet black shadow in the shape of a person walking across the living room and into the bedroom facing it. I was young, but still, I could not believe my eyes, and more than that, I could not believe my mother did not see it, or at least she did not say anything or behave like she saw it. My 3 older sisters once slept in that room with one twin bed and old antique, black bunk beds made of wrought iron. The beds would shake independently, creating an unforgettable clinking, rattling, and scraping sound like metal on metal. The clinking, rattling, and scraping sounds occurred regardless of whether anyone was home alone or with others. I was too young, clueless, and curious to understand what had just happened in our home. Surprisingly, I did not fear it, and when my mother put the finishing touch on my hair, I walked into the living room, looked around, and went to the wooden screen to see if somebody had unlocked it. And it was not, so I turned and went straight into the bedroom where the shadow had walked, or, should I say, glided, but no one was there. I told my mother, but she only reassured me we're safe. Nothing can hurt us. The blood of Jesus covers us. I did not think about it anymore since she assured me we were safe. She took me to school, and I soon forgot about my sighting until it was time for me to go home. I was anxious to get home to investigate more and tell my siblings what I had seen that morning. They often felt and heard things in our house as well, but did not want to frighten me since I was still young and knew that when our mother and stepfather were working, we would be home alone with our older siblings caring for us. After that sighting, the shadow appeared more frequently, moving from one room to another, especially the bedroom next to our only bathroom, our brother Braxton's room, until he joined the Navy and left for basic training. Often, when I went to the kitchen for something, I saw the shadow emerge from the bedroom, turn to the right, walk into the bathroom, and shrink as it passed through the bathtub and out the bathroom window. After the birth of our youngest sister, Haven, and the loss of our younger brother, Ivan, there were 8 of us children left. For we're still home after our older brother joined the Navy, and our 3 eldest sisters were at college. Chapter 2. Simple yet unsettling layout. Our house was originally duplex, but when our stepfather and mother moved us in, she had the separation wall removed to create a single-family home, so that we all would be together under one roof. Our stepfather, the father of our youngest brother and baby sister, had lived in the house with his first wife years earlier. She became ill and passed away in the hospital. He was superstitious and believed she was the one haunting our house. The house had a simple yet unsettling layout. The front door opened directly into the living room, offering an immediate view of the first bedroom. This bedroom never had a door, but a blanket hung over the door frame secured by 2 nails for privacy. To the right of this bedroom was another one where my mother and stepfather slept when all the children lived in the house. There was a closet/storage room in this bedroom. There was no door to this room, just a blanket hanging from the door frame. After my brother left, they moved into his bedroom next to the restroom. The next room was the kitchen, which was not huge, but large enough for our appliances, farmhouse sink, countertop with cabinets, and drop-flap kitchen table. Straight ahead and on the left was the back door, which led outdoors to a large porch. Next to the right was the former bedroom that was now my mom and stepfather's since our brother left for the military. This bedroom was always cold, no matter what season. If you walked a few steps further, there was a small storage area with a refrigerated air conditioner in the window, and the bathroom was the last room to the right. It could be spooky, just like the rest of the house. We had space heaters in our living room, bedrooms, and bathroom, but they did not warm the entire house. It was still freezing in the winter. Our kitchen was often uncomfortable when my sisters cooked or put away the food and cleaned up after our meals. As I grew older and could assist with chores, I stood on a chair and helped wash our dishes in a huge round metal tub, and one of my sisters would rinse them in the large, deep farmhouse sink or vice versa. As we worked and cleaned up the kitchen, it always felt as though we were not alone. The air turned cold and grew thick. The hairs on our arms and the nape of our neck stood up, creating a prickly and uncomfortable sensation. This feeling was as if you were standing too close to the face of the television, and you could feel the hair on your arms stand up due to the static electricity. Each of us witnessed one or the other look around to check if anyone was there or state they felt something just brushing past them. We felt as though something was watching and scrutinizing us, and we could not see them. We worked quickly to finish the job so we could return to the living room with our mother. Chapter 3. Our Stepfather's Ghost Story.